This is Orange Nation Overtime with Steve Infanti and Paulie Sevilla.
Welcome into Orange Nation Overtime, everyone. Alongside Mario Sacco today, I'm Steve Infanti, and we started the Orange Nation radio show this afternoon, Mario, talking women's basketball. This team's playing really well. We saw their big three once again of Layla Filia, Dominique Darius, Uche Azoje show out again last night against Boston College. And listen, that was a game that they were supposed to win, but we saw the men's season kind of come unraveled because of a loss at BC. The women took care of business after a slow start, and they're safely in the NCAA field, at least at the moment. Yeah,
most recent projections had them as an 8 seed, but I know they're playing for more than that. You get to one of those top 16 teams, you have hosting rights, and all that takes is, got a couple of ranked opponents coming down the stretch here to try and pick off, but a very impressive performance once again. A 21-5 second quarter that kind of put it out of reach. And you mentioned those three: Dominique Darius, 3 rebounds shy of a triple-double. Uche doing what she normally does, 18 points. And they really didn't have to play the fourth quarter. Their subs played. 14 different players scored in that basketball game. So the bench was used in a dominant win for Felicia Leggett Jack's squad. And they turn around 48 hours later, and they have to play their toughest opponent of the season to date, number 6 Louisville, comes to the Dome on Sunday. And so that's a good thing, right, that they were able to rest their starters for the most part in that fourth quarter. Louisville had a game go right down to the wire with Duke last night, losing on a missed free throw. I don't know if you saw the end of that game, but Louisville was coming back late. They had a fast break, a chance to tie it in the closing seconds. Duke committed a foul, and the Louisville player made the first, missed the second with like a second to go, and that sealed their fate. So the Cardinals lose at home by 1 to Duke, and so they're not going to be in a great mood coming to Syracuse on Sunday. You mentioned the fact that SU's trying to get into that top 16 realm so that they can get a top 4 seed and get hosting rights. It might be a stretch at this moment to get there, and we'll see how the rest of the season plays out. But at the very least, you hope you can move off that 8-9 line, right, and get to be 6 or 7, because then if you win your first game, you're not going up against the top seed in that second round. So they're certainly trending in the right direction, as you mentioned, 8th in the latest projections. But if they keep playing like this, you hope that they can move up a seed line or two so that they give themselves a better opportunity for success in the tournament. And they have 6 games left, and realistically, 3 of them are pretty much quad 1 opportunities when you look coming down the stretch for this basketball team. And not mentioning getting off that, like, you want to be a top 4 seed too come ACC tournament time, because then you get the buys and what goes with that. So, and we've seen Syracuse struggles in the ACC tournament in recent years on the women's side. Tied for 3rd right now in the ACC standings. And you knock off a Louisville, and you're just a game back of them. It's very close, and it's going to come down to the wire coming down the stretch here. As for the men, they're back on the road to take on another ranked opponent, coming off that loss at North Carolina. Now they turn around. They've got to play at Virginia tomorrow, noon tip, down in Charlottesville. Syracuse has not played well in Charlottesville traditionally. They have not played well against Virginia traditionally since joining the ACC. Another really tough matchup for this team. Yeah, Virginia can score the basketball this year. Unlike years past, they're averaging 83 points a game. They've scored over 80 points in 15 games this season. That's the most for them, Steve, since 2000-2001. Does that tell you the way that Virginia likes to play basketball over the Tony Bennett era? But now, Ryan Odom takes over there, coming over from VCU, and they got a lot of weapons, if it be at the guard position, if it be at the forward, and they can still defend the basketball. Playing a Syracuse team, they've only given up 16 out of their last 17 meetings, they've given up 69 points or less against SU. Yeah, and that's what I was going to say, is that, yes, this Virginia team can score the basketball. That's different. They still play pretty good defense, though. And that's a tough combination for anybody, especially Syracuse. Virginia does have some really good wins. They won at NC State, at Louisville. They've won at SMU, at Texas. Their losses aren't great, but they lost to Virginia Tech in triple overtime. Did lose to Butler and UNC at home, which that's a tough opponent, but it's a really good team. It's going to be a challenge. And again, noon tip tomorrow on ESPN. We had Eric Devendorf on the show today, and we started him off. We're going to play that interview back for you right now, and we started him off by just getting his thoughts on, what's wrong with this team, what's been wrong with this team, especially since the loss to Boston College.
I just think the energy and effort is inconsistent on both ends of the floor. The North Carolina game, if they could play like they played the last 5 minutes with the urgency and energy and effort, and, and put that into the 40 minutes, I mean, they'll be a heck of a team. We talk about the talent and ability, but competing for 40 minutes is huge, and they haven't been able to do it. It's been inconsistent offensively. It's been ISO. It's been a lot of hard shots. When you don't have any ball moving in the half court, every shot is going to be hard. And, yeah, you're going to make some, but you can't sustain, through a game and through a season like that. So it's basically having to play with more urgency, more energy and effort, and being consistent in doing those things. And they haven't been. When the games that they've won, they're able to get out in transition and limit the possessions that they have to play in half court. They rebounded the ball defensively. They're flying around. And then in the losses, we haven't seen that, stagnant rotations where they're slow on the weak side help. So, I mean, it just comes down to competing at a high level every single game for 40 minutes, and, they haven't been able to do that.
Devo, I just most recently listened to an interview with Gino Auriemma, him talking about if it's not happening in practice, it's not going to translate to games. Like, you can't expect us to be playing at this level and come the national championship time, if we're not competing at that level in practice. Is it starting there, do you think, Eric?
Well, absolutely. And I'm not in the practices, so I really can't say much to that. But absolutely. I mean, whatever you're practicing, how hard you're going in practice, those are the habits that you're forming. So if you're just going half speed in practice and just going through the motions, that's what's going to show up in the game. It's hard to just, have that on switch, off switch, and if you're not consistently giving that effort, in practice and in the games, and that's why you see the inconsistencies. So, like I said, I'm not in practice. I don't see what's going on. But hopefully they are, competing at a high level in practice. But right now we're just not seeing that, translate to the game.
How about for you after a loss or a tough stretch during your career? Like, what were those practices like, with your teammates and trying to snap out of something like this?
Well, I tell you, I said it on the podcast the other week. We'd have 2 to 3 fights in practice, every single week, just because we're competing at such a high level. And, the mentality that myself and my teammates had, Johnny Flynn, Paul Harris, and all those guys, they were going out there competing at a high level. If it was pick up, one-on-one, practice, game, whatever it is, that's just the mindset that the team had and that those guys have. So, and we love to play. We really enjoyed playing. And I think that's where it starts. When you have a passion for anything, you're going to give it everything that you got. So I'm not saying that these guys don't love the game, but they have to figure out, if they want to compete, 40 minutes throughout and give themselves a chance.
We saw Donnie taken out of the starting lineup for one game, then reinserted for the North Carolina game. And we heard Red say, listen, everything's on the table right now. With that being said, when you hear everything's on the table, they're looking at everything. Is there a change, whether it's a lineup change, whether it's a strategic change? Is there anything that you would do if you were the head coach right now and say, hey, let's try this because I think it could work?
I mean, they've tried a lot. I wouldn't have, took my best player out of the starting lineup. But again, I'm not in practices. I'm not in the coaches' meetings, so I don't know what they're discussing. But the biggest thing is, like, when these guys go out there, they just have to give everything they got. A lot of the stuff that we're talking about, Steve, is it's redundant. It's the same thing. These last 4 losses or whatever it's been the same thing over and over. Like the effort and energy offensively has been stagnant. Defensively, they've been slow to rotate. And that all goes back to just competing at a high level. So there's not really, much else you can do. You can make all the changes you want, strategic wise, but if you're not competing at a high level and giving everything you got, it's not going to work out for you. So these guys got to figure out, hey, are we going to give everything we got when we step on the court for 40 minutes? Because if not, you're going to keep trending this way that they're trending.
We heard Matt Parks say yesterday, North Carolina was just better. You're going to be playing the likes of Louisville. You got Virginia coming down the stretch here, Duke. Where is that talent gap between Syracuse and these other ACC teams right now? And how do you fix that, Eric? Or is it a talent gap, or is it just them, as you said, not giving effort for a full 40 minutes?
Yeah, look, I've said it, since the beginning of the year. Like, if you put if you look on paper and put these guys against other teams, like talent and ability-wise, they're right there. I mean, even with North Carolina, they're not far off. Like, if you look at the matchups, Donnie and JJ, William Kyle, like Nate Kings, all these guys they're not, like, far off from whoever they're going against, So I don't think it's like a talent issue or an ability issue at all. It's an effort and energy issue, and you can't be inconsistent like that. And when you are, this is, where they're going to be at. So, again, it's like I don't want to make it more complicated because it's not. It's about going out there and competing at a high level, playing with a sense of urgency, especially now, right? If the window's not shut, it's dang near shut on the NCAA tournament. So the urgency, the effort, the energy, it just has to go to another level. If not, we're going to be talking about the same thing and figuring out, hey, what else can we talk about? Because it's been redundant.
All right, let's talk big picture stuff, Eric, if we could. And we know what the mandate was coming into this season from John Wildhack. It was play meaningful games in March, and that is not happening and likely will not happen this year. And so if that's the case, we know what he has said, right, that was the expectation. So I know, being a former player, I'm sure you're rooting for Red. But let's put Red aside here for a moment and say that they do make a change in the offseason. Some names have popped up, obviously, in connection with what could be an opening here. Mike Hopkins, Jerry McNamara in particular, because they're guys with local ties, and we can get to the other candidates as well. But when you hear those names pop up, do you think they will go down? Do you think the administration will go down that path with one of those two guys? And what would your thoughts be? Let's start with Hop, I guess, in terms of, do you think he'd be interested? Do you think there's a chance he would come back?
Well, I mean, they're probably going to take a look at both those guys and obviously a lot more. But whoever that they do bring in, they have to have the NIL backing. Obviously, you have to be able to have the NIL now in this era to be able to get players. It's not so much about recruiting. So, like, when people say, hey, we got to get a coach right away, recruit, I'm not really, on the same page with that. I think if they have the money and they go in the portal, they'll be able to get the guys. Obviously you want to have the connections, but the coaches who they're going after have that. But those two guys that you mentioned, Hop and GMAC, those are great candidates. I think they'll have the backing, they'll have the support, and then they know the game. All right. And the biggest thing is you have to be, whatever you're teaching, whatever you're trying to get through these guys, it has to be able to get through, because whatever's, being taught right now or being said, it just seems like it's not getting through to those guys. They're not motivated. They're not inspired to go out there and play at a high level. So, whoever the next coach is or whatever happens at the end of the year, you got to have a guy in who's highly motivated, who can inspire these guys. And you want the players to have your back as a coach. You want them to be able to lock in and really take to what you're saying. So whoever they have come in, they have to have a guy who can really engage the team and get their attention. Now, when that happens, now they're really soaking in what he's teaching and what he's saying, and they can go out there and perform on the court. But having the NIL backing, and then obviously you want a great support staff. You want guys who, whatever your weakness is, you could kind of fill in for that by bringing those type of guys in and having them around you.
You've seen the success that Jerry's had at Siena in a short period of time, and the question was, how is he going to be as a head coach? When you're looking at Jerry as a head coach right now, what do you see?
Oh, he's doing great. Look, I've known GMAC, since 2005. I play with him. I know what type of motor he has. I know what type of passion he has, leadership skills. And then I was on staff with him, so I heard him, go through the X and O's, doing the scouts, talking to the guys, working out the guys. I mean, I knew he was a head coach before he was a head coach. He knows where to put guys in positions to have success. But the biggest thing at this level, look, everybody can really play. Like, yes, you're going to do the X's and O's and stuff like that, but these guys are at this level for a reason. They know how to play when they go out there. They're smart basketball players in most cases, right? You just got to be able to motivate these guys and inspire these guys to go out and play hard every single time. When you lose, when you have challenges, when guys aren't having good games, you got to be a coach who could find ways to push those buttons on those guys and get them locked back in. And I think GMAC has those traits. I think he showed it when he was assistant at Syracuse, and I think he showed it in the few years at Siena. And look, he took over that Siena job, they only had 3 wins the previous season, So obviously he doubled that in his first year. And then right now I think they're on a 6-game winning streak. I think they just beat Iona last night on ESPN.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, GMAC's been doing great, man. And then he's doing it with not a lot of NIL money. Obviously, it's a different level at Siena, but I think GMAC has been doing a great job. I mean, he'd be a great candidate for any job.
And then, the other portion of this conversation is there is a faction of the fan base that says, well, it's got to be, somebody outside the family. You being an alum and being around the program and now, covering the program with your role calling games. How would you feel about if this was a hire outside the family?
It doesn't matter alum or not. You just want to get the right guy in here. You want to get a guy who wants to represent Syracuse, the tradition, the history, top 10 program of all time. So it's a unbelievable job to have. Anybody who would have an opportunity to come here and coach should be excited about it, right? So I don't care if it's an alum or a guy outside of the program. You just got to get the right guy who wants to be here and who brings the NIL that we talked about and has those traits where he can motivate and inspire guys to really, really play hard. Like I had coaches throughout my whole life who, I'd run through a brick wall for those guys because, the words that they said or they motivated me, inspired me to really go out there and give everything I have. And that's what you wanted a coach. Again, the X's and O's, you want to have a guy who can break it down during timeouts or out of bounds plays, whatever it is. But you want a guy who can motivate guys to go out there and play as hard as they can. Like guys who can lift guys who really may not be super talented. But I think about a guy like Brad Barnell. Like he's doing something right at Clemson, right? He has these guys who won't be considered 3, 4-star, 5-star recruits. And he's got these guys, the second best team in the ACC, and he's done that throughout his whole career. So he found something to where, he's talking to these guys, he's motivating and inspiring these guys to where he's getting them to play above really what they are. And that's what type of guy that you want, to have in your program.
You're calling games on the ACC network and others and helping out. And I asked Steve, where would you rate Syracuse tier-wise as a program right now? What is the word that you're getting back of where this program has been over this last decade?
As far as what?
As far as how much they've fallen off, or do you see it still as a top 25 program on the outset of what it used to be? Does it still have that aurora around it, so to say?
As far as for a coach to come in?
Not even a coach, just as a program is this program still a top-tier program on the outside looking in?
Well, I mean, obviously not. They haven't been ranked in the top 25, and I don't know how long, and we haven't made the tournament in 5 years or something like that. So, no, you can't say they are. But if you're, looking for the outside in as far as a coach, I definitely want to be here. It's a top, 5, top 10 job in college basketball. And it doesn't take a lot to get this program back on track. It's just, again, having the right guy who wants to be there, who surrounds himself with a great support staff and brings in the right players. You could bring in the wrong players. They could be really talented, but they could come here because, hey, they're paying me a lot of money and I just want to get my shine on it and then, go off to the NBA or transfer to another school. You need guys who want to be here because they want to be at Syracuse, they want to represent Syracuse, and they want to win at Syracuse. When you have those guys, high character guys, you're better as a team overall. It's different recruiting now. It's not necessarily the best player is going to be the best fit for your team. So when you're recruiting in the portal or whatever you're doing, you have to look at all those characteristics. Hey, does he fit with this guy? Is he a good teammate? Is he going to continue to play hard when things aren't going well or when you have challenges out there? So it's a lot of stuff that goes into looking at players. It's not just hey, is he a really good player? You want him to have all those other characteristics of a high character guy.
Last one, Devo, as we let you go here and we come full circle back to this game tomorrow. You've seen Virginia play. You've obviously seen Syracuse play a lot. Lay out a blueprint for us of how this is, a close game in the final 5 minutes tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not the Virginia team that we were used to seeing. They want to get up and play fast, and they got some good freshmen. The freshman, he's 24, I think, though, so he's not really a freshman. But they got guys who could score inside. They got guards who could, drive the ball and make perimeter shots. But again, man, Syracuse has the guys. They have the ability to compete and stay in the game with anyone. It's just what team is going to show up? How hard are you going to compete? Offensively, you want to get some movement in the half court. But ideally, if you can get it and run and get ahead of the defense, we got the guys to really do that. They excel. JJ is one of the best at getting out on the open floor, putting his head down and getting downhill, and then you can space the floor and get your shooters in space and get them some open looks. And then defensively, man, just fly around, communicate, talk, bring that urgency back into we're the first 3-4 games against when you play Binghamton and those other teams. Where's that intensity at? It starts with that. X and O's, whatever you want to say. Those guys got to bring energy and effort to the court and compete at a high level. When they do that, they're going to be in every single game.
That was Eric Dievendorf, and going into the season, Mario, we looked at the schedule and we said, well, it's a good thing that they have all these tough games in the month of February because regardless of where they are, they can play their way into the tournament. I don't know if we were looking at the possibility of they would be so far off the bubble that. Yes, it's a good thing they have opportunities, but man, this thing could really go sideways as well if you don't pull off an upset or two here.
Yeah, they've lost 5 out of their last 6, and that could head downhill in a hurry when you got the likes of Louisville, Duke coming down the stretch, as well as your matchup with Virginia on Saturday.
What do you think this game comes down to tomorrow?
It comes down to guard play. J.J. Starling has to have a good game, and Nate George has to protect the basketball, or it could get out of hand in a hurry like it did against North Carolina. When Syracuse wins basketball games in conference play, they average over 50% from the field. In their losses, the closest they came to 50% was 49%. So, they have to shoot the basketball well, and JJ's got to get off to a strong start.
As the men are taking on Virginia, the lacrosse team, the SU men, will be in action here in Syracuse against St. Joseph's. We had Tim Leonard, who calls the games for the men's lacrosse team and women's basketball team as well. He joined us in studio, and we talked some lacrosse as SU gets set to take on St. Joseph's noon tomorrow inside the Dome.
Well, I think the biggest thing to point out is how can you clear the ball a little bit better, because they're going to face another 10-man ride here against St. Joe's, and it's a different style of 10-man ride. Just was chatting with Gary Gate a little bit about how they're not going to even attempt shooting against this team, like the way that Billy Dwan was trying the full field shots last game. They can't really do it against this St. Joe's team. St. Joe's was literally the best team in the country last year at forcing turnovers in the riding game, and number 1 at opponent clear percentage. They were 6th in the nation in turnovers forced, period. So they want to clean that up. They've worked on it a ton in practice, as they always do when they know that they're going against a team with a 10-man ride. And after this game, you're probably not going to see a 10-man ride again until Colgate. So it's a fascinating thing that they're seeing back-to-back teams, limited game film on them as well. Obviously they didn't have game film on BU. St. Joe's had their first game of the year canceled. It's a new head coach, Scott Meehan, who was kind of known for implementing the 10-man ride for St. Joe's as their top assistant the last 7 years there. So we would imagine he's not going to deviate from that, but it's still, they got to prepare for St. Joseph's 10-man ride, their best guess at it, and then also be ready to adjust if there's different wrinkles to it. And I think that's the most important storyline of the game. I will say that a lot of the other areas in terms of getting possessions, I think Syracuse will be very good in. In terms of face-offs, I feel like they're going to dominate in that category tomorrow, knowing that St. Joe's top face-off guy returning from last year was 45%. It seems like the Hawks are going to deploy, like they're calling a 3-headed monster. They're going to try and throw out some different guys at John Mullen, but Mullen should win a bulk of the faceoffs tomorrow, and Syracuse just has to be a little bit smarter with the ball in terms of avoiding the sloppy turnovers, clearing. But I think they will be, because they got experience against it last week, and they've gotten a full week to prepare in the Dome here to go against another team with a 10-man ride.
Coming into the season, you knew all the offensive talent that you had. And you got to do is start with Joey Spallina and go down the line. Defensively last week, though, I thought they played pretty well. At times were a little, lackluster on their switches, so to say. Yeah. But how would you rate how the defensive unit played and caged Jimmy McCool with 12 saves?
I think you're exactly right. I think there were a couple pick plays that got them and just some bad communication first game where you got to call out who's getting who a little bit better. But I think they've got a very solid defensive unit. And actually, Inside Lacrosse released like their top 5 defensive units in the country, and then they had some honorable mentions. I was a little surprised to see Syracuse wasn't on that. I mean, Riley Figueres, to me, is the most underrated player on the team. When you look at who gets the All-American nominations and who gets the accolades on the team, I feel like he always falls too far down that list. And Billy Juan gets maybe more praise from an All-American perspective because he scores some flashy goals and he has the flashy stats to his name, but Riley is always covering the top guy, and he is in the best compliment you can give to a defensive player. We don't talk about him that much throughout the game, and he kind of goes under the radar because of how sound he is. And I do think Jimmy McCool is an All-American level goalie, and I like what they have in terms of the size at the short stick defensive midfield position compared to the last couple of seasons. So I think their defense is not going to be an issue throughout the year. And if anything, it should be a little bit better than the offense, I'd imagine.
Joey Spallina at 251 career points. He's 3 away from passing Gary Gait for 8th all-time in program history, 57 away from that magic number 308, which would pass Mikey Powell for most in program history. What is his legacy going to be? And is it contingent on him winning a title? Let's say, for the sake of argument, let's say they win a title. Mm-hmm. What is and he's he leads them to that. What is his legacy here with all the all-time greats? Is he among the all-time greats?
So I would say he's on the Mount Rushmore if he wins the title. I don't think you can pass Gary Gait or Mikey Powell because to me, anyone that it's almost like the MJ LeBron debate. Anyone that I talk to that saw both players play, they all say MJ, I feel like, or anyone that had the opportunity to watch MJ's entire career. Maybe that's generalizing a little bit too much, but in general, it's like everyone wows or talks so glowingly about Gary and Mike Powell, and I've watched all the old game film, and they're just on a different level in terms of athletes and what they did to the sport and just how impressive and how much it was like jaw-dropping stuff, what they were doing. Joey's never going to be that, but Joey statistically is going to have one of the best careers in Syracuse history, and he probably will be the all-time leading scorer, barring an injury this year when he's done with his career. So if you're just going off of stats, you have to put him in the conversation with the all-time greats, and then to actually get to Mount Rushmore, you got to win a national title at Syracuse, and he knows that as much as anyone.
When you're looking at the team as a whole, it was talked about in big games. Did you have that guy that could go one-on-one and take him off? Because that's not the player that Joey is.
Yeah.
Do you feel that Syracuse offense has the potential to be better this year than what we saw last year?
Yeah, I think Peyton Anderson is kind of that guy, yes. And he's only a sophomore, and he's only going to get better, you would think. He's got the athleticism that if you throw the ball to him on the wing and he's able to get some space and dodge, I think he can definitely break you down. I think Bo Khan, who is a second midi right now as a true freshman, is also in the category of just gives them kind of a different look. Yep. And Gary has been open and honest about they're trying to recruit players that have that profile a little bit more. And with all due respect to like Wyatt Huddle, I mean, he's a fantastic player and has had a nice career at Syracuse. He's a speed demon who just, when you look at him on the field, you can tell his best attribute is speed. Peyton Anderson has some speed, but he's also got the ability to bull dodge you, and same with Bo Khan. So I think Michael Leo has a little bit of that shake in his game too. So I think they're better equipped in that regard than they have been in previous years.
That was Tim Leonard, does a great job calling games for the SU men's lacrosse team and the women's basketball team. We should mention the women's lacrosse squad kicking off their new season inside the Dome tonight. Reggie Thorpe, first game as head coach at his alma mater. Don't really know what to expect to this team, right?
I have no idea what to expect. I mean, you know some names that are coming back. The Munchcheks and Coco Van Diver was named a preseason All-American, but a lot of question marks surrounding his style of play and how it might be different than the Kayla Trainer era here.
And we should get some answers tonight. And they jump right in, right? To the, as Coach P used to say, into the deep end of the pool. They're taking on Maryland, who's ranked 7th. We're not used to seeing Syracuse outside the top 10 to start the season. But again, new coach, a lot of new faces, potentially new style of play.
Well, they can put themselves in the top 10 pretty quickly when you play at Maryland, North Carolina, and Stanford to start that season.
No doubt. All right, we got to run, everybody. Thank Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. For Mario, I'm Steve. Enjoy your weekend. We'll talk to you again on Monday.
Download the WSYR Plus app on your TV to stream News Channel 9 for free. Just go to your smart TV, search WSYR Plus in the App Store, and download to start streaming today.